A video gone viral is raising questions about the excessive use of force in trying to get civilians to uphold the law. Michael Jackson, Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice, is calling for accountability and reform of Jamaica's crime-fighting strategies. She joins us now. Good morning, Michael. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time.
Good morning to you both. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Good to have you. Okay, so where do we even start with this? Let's start with what your understanding is of what may have happened that day. Lots of people talking about it in lots of different channels and media. Some are saying we're seeing the back end. Some are saying we don't know the full story. Tell me what your thoughts are, Michael.
I think we agree that the videos are just a snippet of what may have occurred on the location. Nevertheless, what we managed to glean from the videos are cause for concern, because in one of the videos in particular, we clearly see a woman in the beginning, for example, her hands were behind her back, and there are clear indications that she is unarmed. And from our position, one, you see excessive use of force clearly there, because this is an armed soldier who is trained to fight, who is trained to deal with matters that are intense. So the obligation and the higher duty of care must be on a trained soldier with a rifle in his hand. And under no circumstance can we say that there was appropriate use of force where a soldier can see it fit to kick a female who is clearly unarmed. And there are several issues that we find with that, the first of which is the excessive use of force. But from our perspective, it runs counter to the message of the Ministry of Gender, the government of Jamaica, around reducing violence against women.
It's a tough discussion for me, Michael. I'm telling you, it is, because I am a gender-based violence advocate. I do not agree at all. So what I'm about to say is not a reflection of that, but we have to flesh out the discussion, so I have to ask the questions.
Sure.
I have to say, in terms of the citizenry and how we also engage the security forces, is that also a problem for us here in Jamaica, regardless of gender?
You know, the reason we're very careful at JFJ in discussing this second component, because at no point we want there to be any equivalence between the situation that we saw and the broader issue of violence. I think, and let me be very frank, since JFJ has issued this release, for example, persons are calling members within the Denham Town community all sorts of names. And it suggests a broader issue of discrimination where we lump up everybody within a particular community and call them criminals. I say this to say, in calling out the Denham Town community, persons are therefore threatening violence towards the staff members of JFJ, which speaks to the broader issue, as you asked earlier, around violence in the country and how we deal with it and what is expected of citizens. So a big part of what we have been calling for from the government is to ensure that the restorative justice program that is being managed by the Ministry of Justice is something that they roll out, and it must accompany the ZOZO, where persons get a sense of how do I participate in initiatives for violence reduction and violence prevention? If those things are not a critical component of ZOZO, then nothing will change. And I just want to remind the public, my apologies, my alarm went off. I just want to remind the public that ZOZO has been within the Denham Town community as far back as 2017. What results have we seen to justify this continued use of military force? The second thing I want the Jamaican public to remember is that in our viewpoint, our vantage point, is that what Denham Town community represents as well is a policy failure of the state to deal with the history of abuse and the political exploitation of this particular community. And what we have seen demonstrated in this video, it will recur, and secondly, it is just an unfortunate incident of something that was inevitable in the first place.
And do you find this to be an anomalous event, or are you saying you're concerned because this is happening too frequently? I ask because you speak of folks lumping and calling the JFJ. Are we, because you're calling for a sweeping overhaul or a broader look
Yes.
at our crime-fighting strategies, are we
Yes.
using anomalous incidents to lump and kind of cast the entire security force, or are we really, you know, at a place now where we have to sit up and take notice and say, no, man, this thing gone too bad now, it has to stop?
You know, one human violated is enough for us to take pause, for sure. But no, we have seen incidents certainly in the past couple months. And if you check the media reports, the Joint Anti-Gang Task Force, for example, we would have seen situations. A mentally ill man was abused allegedly by the security forces. We have seen history of this paramilitary approach. Certainly what would have happened under the SOEs. JFJ has hundreds of cases that we can make reference to. That when you put soldiers in communities, this is bound to happen. Our history of crime fighting, which has not worked, demonstrates that human rights abuses will occur. So no, we're not looking at this incident in an isolated manner, but it is an example that the government must take pause and re-examine. I want to pause and just remind persons that the Zozo is expected to last initially for 60 days. 60 days. And what we continue to see is that you go to Parliament, you extend and you extend and you extend. But the other provisions on the Zozo, we have not seen where they have sufficiently been implemented, and we must ask questions. If the government, for example, say that security cameras, body-worn cameras, and by the way, it's not a panacea to anything, but it can increase accountability. If body cameras are to be worn by the soldiers and the police officers, where are they? How many of them would have been disbursed? Within the Zozo communities, are they being worn? The second thing that we pause and we ask, if social interventions are to accompany the Zozos, we ask ourselves the question, how much money would have been managed by JSF, I think, is managing the social intervention component? How many youngsters would have been trained in violence prevention, violence reduction? How many persons would have gotten employment? How many persons would have actually been placed in jobs? These are the critical questions that we must ask. We can't just come up with the statement to say, okay, soldiers deployed, Zozo extended. We must ask, what are the accompanied social interventions? Are they working? And if the government can't sufficiently answer those questions, then we are saying, let's re-examine the Zozo and put our energies towards community-based policing, where the trust can be built within these communities with law enforcement. That is something that we're very clear on. Citizenry is important, but the security forces and the state must be held to a higher standard, for sure.
All right, Mikhail, I wanted to talk, we're out of time, I wanted to talk a little bit further about the resources that we use, because I feel in situations where crowd control is necessary, there are other ways, but I don't know if our security forces have the resources in terms of dispersing crowds and so on. So I feel they revert to what they know, and that's what happens. But I want to thank you for speaking with us this morning. As we continue the dialogue, you know, I think we're all hoping for a better Jamaica and a crime-free Jamaica. And we just need to keep talking about it.
And we denounce the violence of any kind by whomever is perpetrating it. We'll just want to underscore that. Thank you so much, Mikhail. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
Thank you, Mikhail Jackson, Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice. Rough, eh?
Yeah.
Rough. All right, more on Smile after this break, everybody. We'll be right back.